Josh George, college football, predicting the bowls. I will predict all the bowls. This is preseason bowl predictions for 2023 from Josh George, according to how I have everything shaping out in the college football world. I put a fun little playlist together. So without further ado, let us begin. So the first bowl of the Celebration Bowl might be the first, it might not be. It's kind of up in the air. Now the Holiday Bowl has gone out of business. So with no Holiday Bowl, the EA Bowl is likely to take its place. It's looking to move in and move it to Los Angeles. So there'll be a couple bowls in LA this year. And right now, it doesn't have any tie-ins. So there you go. So the old Holiday Bowl or the EA Bowl, I have Georgia Southern beating Houston. That will push Houston to 7-6, and Georgia Southern will get to 7-6. I feel like the past game of Georgia Southern and the past game of Dan Holgerson will create a fun bowl environment and a fun shootout for all that watch, and a fun little way to open bowl season with two air raid coaches. Now, the Bahamas Bowl. Look, the Bahamas Bowl, I have ECU and New Mexico State getting there, and I think ECU has more talent. You look at a 247 talent composite. So, because of that, they find a way to win the Bahamas Bowl. ECU will finish the year at 7-6, and New Mexico State 6-7. Now, to the New Orleans Bowl. So, in this game, I am featuring Troy and Liberty. Now that Liberty gets a conference tie-in, they're not stuck going to weird bowl games like the Independence Bowl every year. And I have both of these teams finishing 8-5 after Troy beats Liberty. Now, Tulsa and Southern Miss. Look, Southern Miss in the Cure Bowl. Southern Miss is one of those teams that I have doing really good with Frank Ward Jr., and I've talked a lot about that running game. But I just feel that they might get out coached, and that Tulsa will find a way to stop the running game. I have Tulsa finishing the year 7-6 and sending Southern Miss to 8-5 in the Cure Bowl. Now, the New Mexico Bowl. The New Mexico Bowl I have featuring UTEP and Central Florida. And Central Florida, Gus Malzahn, always tough guy to prepare for in a bowl game, gets the ball to different people in different ways. But I just have that feeling that UTEP brings a stronger crowd, and sometimes in a bowl game, that's all that matters. So I have UTEP beating Central Florida. UTEP will finish the year at 8-5, and Central Florida at 6-7. Now, that's an old Nebraska logo, by the way, and an old Iowa State logo. The Independence Bowl, which features two at-large bids, and with the Big Ten and the Big 12 being so crowded with so many bowl teams, they basically need an extra spot. And so they get into that Independence Bowl, and not a lot of Independence teams bowl eligible. I just had two this year. But I like Matt Campbell to beat Matt Rule in his first season at Nebraska. I think he gets them to a bowl game, but they lose. They go 6-7, and Iowa State winds up 8-5. Now, the Myrtle Beach Bowl, featuring Middle Tennessee and Louisiana. Louisiana had an 8-win season already, and Middle Tennessee will be a team trying to get to a winning record. Sometimes that extra motivation of trying to get to a winning record really makes the difference. I have them getting to 7-6 and sending Louisiana to 8-5. The Raging Cajun. Okay, to the Frisco Bowl, or should I say the Tropical Smoothie Cafe. Frisco Bowl, featuring La Tech and Memphis. La Tech and Memphis are both going to be pretty consistent teams. Obviously, they made it to a bowl game. This will be La Tech's 14th game of the season, and even if they lose, they will still wind up strangely 500 at 7-7, which is what I have happening, and I have Memphis finding a way to get a winning record at 7-6, and La Tech at one of those weird 7-7 records. The UAB Blazers meet Fresno State in the Boca Raton Bowl, according to my predictions. UAB, good running game, stop the running game. You know, they kind of try to recruit this area. They do a little bit more than Fresno State does. So they find a way to get a win with recruits watching. So I have them finishing 9-4 and Fresno State going to 8-5. Now, Utah will meet FAU in the Gasparilla Bowl, sponsored by Union Homes. Now, I just feel like Utah, because they have more talent, they have a better defensive line, and Cam Rising has to end his career on a high note, that they get the win over FAU. And I feel like Tom Herman gets into rebuilding mode, as his team was 7-6, and Utah was 9-4, and maybe looking to get back on top of the Pac-12 next season. Now, the Carmelo Bowl in Montgomery, Alabama. Appalachian State is the much closer team than the Buffalo Bulls would be. Geography always plays a factor in these bowl games. Sometimes the team that has less travel just wins, pushing Appalachian State to 8-5 and Buffalo to 6-7. Now, in the Birmingham Bowl, with SEC ties already filled and the Big 12 having another slot to fill, again, I have the way they scheduled it. The Big 12 did really good. I think they'll have a lot of teams bowl eligible, and a lot of teams really play a lot of winnable non-conference games. So I have this shaking out, and I just think Tim Beck's rushing attack is going to be too much for Oklahoma State. Gundy, I already had him with a winning record. This will be 18 consecutive seasons, though. But I'd have him finishing at 7-6 and a winning record. And I have Coastal Carolina winning the bowl game and going 9-5. Now, to the famous Idaho Potato Bowl, it would feature Wyoming and Eastern Michigan. If Wyoming has the passing game of their lives, which they have had before in big bowl games with Josh Allen, I think this is kind of their breakout. Our past game is back kind of a game, and they win and go 8-5, and they beat Eastern Michigan, who will also wind up 8-5. Now, to the Armed Forces Bowl. Well, I almost always pick the Armed Force. I have Purdue getting in from the Big Ten into this game. Again, a conference with a lot of at-large spots, a conference that is a lot better and big-time improved. I have Purdue 7-6 and Army 10-3 to finish the year. Now, a new bowl. It used to be the Lending Tree Bowl. Now it's the 68 Vitchers Bowl. Also in Alabama. It is in Mobile, and they're going to use the big cruise vessel that's there to advertise it. So it's a cool little advertisement. So there you go, and it's right there on the beach. So actually a nice little place. It's actually home to where South Alabama is. So that's part of the reason I picked this, because geography! And a team that was in the top 25, if you watch my top 25 video, you'll have to go back and watch it. Of course, South Alabama wins and winds up 12-2 and 7-6 in conference play. So, Las Vegas Bowl. So, the Las Vegas Bowl will feature a Big 12 team, Texas Tech, and a Pac-12 team, Colorado. So prime time, I had him at 6-6. Can he win his first bowl game over a tough offense? It's just you've got all season gel, you get the extra bowl practices, which are huge. I don't know. Deion Sanders, I know will he push everyone out if they lose? I don't know. Anyways, but I think Texas Tech gets to 9 wins, 9-4 on the year, and they send Colorado to 6-7. Southern Methodist and Central Michigan are who I have meeting up in the Hawaii Bowl. Southern Methodist will have seen a little bit better competition in the American Conference, and a trip to Hawaii is always who can maintain their focus. A Michigan team going to a warm place, they're probably going to play around a little bit more too, in my opinion. So I have Southern Methodist beating Central Michigan. SMU will be 9-4, and Central Michigan would wind up 7-6. Now to the Quick Lane Bowl. Row the boat. PJ Fleck's Minnesota team takes a really fundamentally sound Toledo team on. Does PJ Fleck have the talent to win a big, close game? That would be the question. And it is in Detroit, so it will be an interesting, close game, but the Big Ten usually beats the MAC in these scenarios. So Minnesota goes 7-6 with the win, and Toledo winds up 10-4 with the loss. The First Responders Bowl. Top 25 team UConn goes up against Western Kentucky, and I think this is a bowl matchup where UConn gets a little bit exposed. They wind up 10-3 at the end of the year, and Western Kentucky winds up 11-3, and maybe finishes in that final top 25. Iowa and Kansas meet in the Guaranteed Rate Bowl down in Arizona. A fun little bowl game. Iowa has better defense. I think they shut down Daniels at quarterback. For Kansas, I think Kansas is so happy with the winning record, making it to a bowl game. Sometimes it can get to your head, and Lance Leopold's really going to have to battle that stigma of we've done it, we're here, we're really on our way up. And I think Iowa, a team that really puts an emphasis on winning bowl games, goes to 9-4 with a win over Kansas, sending them to 8-5. So not a bad season for Kansas. Okay, the Military Bowl, which has a tie-in with the American Conference, hoping to try to get Navy in. I didn't have Navy Bowl eligible, so 10-win Tulane team got in, and a tough ACC team in Louisville. Neither one of these teams are military, so I'm going to make my prediction on the team with the most talent, which is Louisville. I have them at 7-6 and Tulane at 10-4. Now the Duke's Mayo Bowl. I predicted this Duke to get there a couple years in a row. We'll see if it actually happens. I think if they do get there, they will win. Now, Mark Stoops is a really good coach, and he'll do really good in any bowl game he's in. But if it is the Duke's Mayo Bowl, Duke wins to go 7-6, and Kentucky winds up 7-6 with a loss. Now, the Texas Bowl, featuring a Texas team in the Baylor Bears, a team that did really good. They've got Dave Aranda and Blake Shapen, so a good quarterback, good defensive-minded coach, and a team that will be really gelling, and a defense that is going to be able to shut down Will Rogers, quarterback for Mississippi State. And Baylor winds up 9-4, and Mississippi State winds up 6-7. And of course, they're kind of the home team. Texas, Baylor is being in the Texas Bowl. It's not too far from Waco. Okay, let's see here. The Fenway Bowl, featuring North Carolina State and UTSA, a team that just won the American Conference, going up against an ACC team. See, this is one of those barometer games. The ACC, you feel like, has to find a way to get a win. I think that they get over the hump and they get it done, beating UTSA, putting UTSA to 9-5, and I had that being NC State's 7th win. So, Pittsburgh and Illinois in the Pinstripe Bowl. Two regional schools, ACC and Big Ten, they usually try to pick teams that are kind of close therein. So, close to that area. Two teams that I have finishing at 7-6, which would hit the over, by the way, for Illinois' season after Pittsburgh wins. New-ish bowl game. You've heard of the Cheez-It Bowl. Forget the Cheez-It Bowl. It's the Pop-Tart Bowl now. It is in Orlando. And it has ties with Big 12 and ACC, of course. And Chris Klein is a really, really, really good coach. Mario Cristobal trying to really turn around Miami. Might go on some recruiting trips if he's in this bowl game. Might even bring recruits there. They're trying to, Central Florida. You gotta try to win it, But I think Kansas State wins the game. I think Chris Kleiman pulls it out, and they win the Pop-Tarts Bowl in Orlando. Now, that's the TCU logo. TCU and UCLA face off in the Alamo Bowl, according to my predictions. And I think the Hypno-Toad gets it done. I think Sonny Dykes and Kendall Briles and this staff really end up doing a really good job. I think they have really good numbers. And if the ball bounces their way, they're right there back in a Big 12 title game. And who knows, man? Maybe even back in a playoff. I don't think they have a lot of drop-off. I have them at 10-3 at the end of the year, and sending UCLA 6-7 on their way to the Big Ten. Okay, the Tax Slayer Gator Bowl. Tax Slayer Gator Bowl, I have A&M facing off against North Carolina. North Carolina, Mac Brown, is actually under-talented compared to an A&M team. I think an A&M team that has to flex their muscles. We don't know what Jimbo's situation will be like. It may be win a bowl game or we've got the buyout. So I've got A&M 7-6 and North Carolina 10-3. Now the Liberty Bowl in Memphis, Tennessee, I have it featuring what the SEC will call a rivalry game in Oklahoma and Missouri. Teams that will play in 2024 in Columbia, Missouri, and teams that will likely play at the end of each season, that Week 14 rivalry week, as a home and home. And they will be basically OU's rivals in the SEC will be Texas and Missouri. So there you go. And of course, teams that actually have a decent history and a game that will be fun to talk up. I'm going to do a video on coaches of the year and Heisman winners and all that. And I think Venables and his defense really shut down Missouri in this game and have one of those, okay, we want the talk in the offseason to be we might be ready for the SEC, not the SEC is going to overwhelm us kind of thing. And I have them finishing at 11-3 and sending Missouri to 6-7. Now, the Music City Bowl with Arkansas and Maryland. Two teams that are actually really evenly matched, and two amazing quarterbacks, Tulia Tagovailoa and KJ Jefferson. So, and a great running back at Arkansas. Great running game for Arkansas, wins the game, though Maryland defense can't stop the run of Arkansas. Both teams wind up 8-5. Arizona Bowl, featuring Boise State and Ohio. Two teams that I have playing for a conference championship game. But I had Ohio winning a conference championship game, so I'm going to have Boise State winning a bowl game. Kind of to even things out here into games it's a bowl game. It could go either way. Boise State finishes 10-3. Ohio finishes 9-5. The Citrus Bowl. Auburn back in a bowl game under Hugh Freeze. Wisconsin, a team that really at 10 wins, a lot of people will say they might have overperformed. And a top 25 team could really bolster Auburn in the offseason. I have them getting 9-4 after winning the bowl game. and sending Wisconsin to 10-4. Now, in the Request Bowl, South Carolina and Penn State. I think Penn State's only going to lose 2 games this year, and I'm going to stick by that even through the bowl game. Even if Spencer Rattler goes off, Penn State finds a way to get the win and only lose to Ohio State, Michigan, and wind up 11-2, and they send South Carolina to 6-7. Now to the Notre Dame, Oregon, Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl. I had this last year, and I think Notre Dame will get it done. This year, I have Notre Dame 11-2 and Oregon 9-4. The LA Bowl, well, it should almost be called the other LA Bowl now, will feature Oregon State and San Diego State. San Diego State's going to be trying to prove that they belong in the Pac-12, and DJ's going to try to put up awesome numbers and think about going into the draft, trying to really attract scouts. I think DJ wins the game late. Oregon State winds up 11-2, and San Diego State falls to 10-4. Now, to your New Year's Day Bowls, New Year's 6. The Orange Bowl, Clemson and Tennessee. Look, Clemson and Tennessee, really good matchup, really good defenses, really good offenses. Milton and Klubnik, great quarterback duel. And the Orange Bowl, dude, it's actually really exciting, and I think this could happen again, and I think it would be fun if it's a standard thing that we get an Orange Bowl. Anyways, I have Clemson winning, going to 11-3, and sending Tennessee to 10-4. Now, the Fiesta begins in the Fiesta Bowl. Ohio State plays a USC team. A USC team that if they're beat up, they're going to struggle. They just don't have the depth. Now, they may be healed up by now, but Ohio State has the receiver talent. Their quarterback will be developed enough by now to use all that talent, and they have a really good running back. So, Ohio State wins, goes 11-2, and sends USC to 10-4. But I think both of these teams go away with the end of the year on just we're not where we want to be kind of a feeling. The AT&T Cotton Bowl gets the Group of 5 team in Air Force. Air Force actually beat a Big 12 team in a bowl game last year in Baylor, so it'll be the talk of the town that yes, they can win it. Oh, and the Group of 5 team, by the way, won a bowl game last year from the American Conference, so it does happen from time to time. And, of course, Air Force will be wanting to prove that we were a one-loss team trying to get into the playoffs. Now, with the expanded playoffs and 6 conference bids, Air Force would be a playoff team, by the way, if we were using that format. But it's the Cotton Bowl in Texas. It's kind of their bowl game, you know. So Texas wins. They go to 12-2, and they send Air Force to 12-2. Then the Peach Bowl, featuring Washington and Ole Miss. Ole Miss is a team that I only had losing 2 games. And I really think Lane Kiffin prepares well for bowl games. And with those 2 quarterbacks, with Jackson Dart and Spencer Sanders, they're going to find a matchup. And they're going to control the ball. And one of those guys, usually if you have 2, you don't have 1. In this case, they have 2. They can beat 1. And they beat Penix Jr., and they wind up 11-2. It's in Washington to 11-3. Now, playoff games. This is the Sugar Bowl, which Georgia would be the number 1 team. Florida State would be the number 2 team. I think if there's a blowout this year, when I did my analysis, I think it will be this game, because Georgia has all the matchups, has more talent than Florida State. Florida State's been winning a lot of close games. I don't think it's as bad as that TCU game, but I think this is your blowout game that happens in the playoffs, and Georgia goes to the national title 14-0 and sends Florida State to 12-2. Now, to the Rose Bowl. Michigan. It's their bowl game. It's the Big Ten's game. Big Ten and Pac-12. LSU gets to go and enjoy the festivities, and I think the festivities of the Rose Bowl, if you've never been, it can get to you, and I just, Chip Kelly, it'll be his first time to go to the playoffs with this LSU team, and I think it's great for them, but I think Michigan finds a way to win and get to 15-0. Two undefeated teams in the national title. I don't know if that'll happen, but I'm predicting it. I'm going to go on and say it will, and that you have a fun title game down in Houston, Texas. Georgia going for a three-peat. Well, unless it's college softball, it doesn't happen that much in college football. Michigan will be your national champion this season. I'm Josh George. You can watch my other videos if you want to see other final record predictions. And this is Football Guys channel. I enjoyed talking to you this offseason.